Set in Kerala, India, while the COVID pandemic is still going on, the story follows Joji, an unemployed engineering graduate who lives in a large house in the middle of a plantation with his family. He lives with his two older brothers, Joman and Jason, along with their father Cudapan, a powerful man who owns several businesses and is feared by everyone in the family. Jason's wife, Binsi, also lives there, along with Joman's son, Poppy. One morning, Poppy is waiting for a delivery. It turns out he has ordered an air gun, and this thing is strong enough to shoot a pellet right through a tree. But when Joji sees it, he immediately takes it away from him, since a school-age kid definitely should not be playing around with something that dangerous. After that, Joji asks his father for permission to borrow the truck so he can buy hay for the horse. He also asks for 2,000 rupees for fuel. But instead of going himself, Joji sends the gardener, Thada, to buy the hay and only gives him 1,500 rupees, while quietly keeping the remaining 500 for himself. And in that small, quiet moment, his true nature starts to show. This is Joji. Later, after smoking by the river, Joji comes back home, eats the breakfast Binsi has prepared, drinks coffee while watching something, and eventually falls asleep until afternoon. But then Cudapan wakes him up because he already knows Joji has stolen 8,000 rupees from his bank account. Cudapan is also fed up with Joji lying around every day doing nothing. The business his father once gave him has already failed, and now Joji is hoping to sell one of the family's horses. Joji promises to return the money he took, but the moment his father leaves the room, he explodes in anger, because deep down he feels like his father has been controlling and humiliating him for years. Unlike Joji, his two older brothers are doing quite well with the businesses their father gave them. Joman, a widower, helps manage the family's large farmland, while Jason runs the family's rubber shop in town. At the same time, Cudapan is also building a pond, but the water source is blocked by stones and mud. When the workers fail to pull the blockage out, Cudapan steps in himself. Even at 74 years old, he is still physically strong, and he manages to pull it loose. But right after that, Cudapan suddenly collapses and is rushed to the hospital. It turns out he has suffered a severe stroke after a blood vessel burst while he was pulling the blockage. Dr. Felix, who is still related to Cudapan's family, consults with the doctors at the hospital. The next morning, Felix tells Joman and Jason that Cudapan will most likely be completely paralyzed, and his condition will be extremely difficult to recover from. Meanwhile, Joji is in a good mood because someone is interested in buying his horse. He even asks Poppy to take photos of him while riding it, clearly enjoying the moment. Not long after that, Cudapan is brought back home to continue his treatment. Even though he is completely paralyzed, he can still blink, though even that takes a great deal of effort. Felix then explains to Binsi which medications Cudapan needs to take. At the same time, Joman warns Joji to start taking responsibility and reminds him to pray for their father every night at 8. He is clearly frustrated, especially seeing that Joji shows no real sadness and barely listens to anything he says. Later, Joman asks his father for permission to take a bottle of liquor from his cabinet, planning to drink with Jason and Dr. Felix. The three of them end up getting drunk, and afterward, Joman asks Joji to drive Felix home so he stays safe. During that trip, Joji quietly tries to find out how much time his father has left. Felix believes Cudapan may only have around 2 weeks to live. On the way back, something unsettling happens. Joji is seen smiling to himself, almost as if he is relieved that his father might die soon. When he gets home, his behavior becomes even more disturbing. Out of spite, he deliberately drops and plays with Cudapan's weakened hand, the same hand that once used to hit him. Cudapan can do nothing but stare. On Sunday, Felix brings a priest to the house, and they gather to pray for Cudapan's recovery. But the atmosphere feels more like a farewell than a healing. Sensing this and noticing how uneasy his father looks, Joman abruptly stops the prayer and rushes him back to the hospital. As expected, Cudapan's condition continues to worsen. Felix explains that a transplant operation is possible, but it comes with extreme risk and an enormous cost, somewhere between 200 to 300 million rupees. Despite that, Joman and Jason do not hesitate. They decide to move forward with the surgery using their father's own money, because for them, his recovery matters more than anything, even if the risk is high. While everyone anxiously waits for the results of the operation, Joji is doing something completely different. He teams up with Poppy to buy a drone using their father's money. On top of that, he has already taken Cudapan's wristwatch without permission, showing just how little he cares about what is happening around him. Not long after, Joji hears that the surgery was a success, and his father will soon be brought home to continue recovery. Cudapan's condition improves significantly. He can move parts of his body again, even speak a little, and he gives Joji a sharp, piercing look, clearly remembering how his youngest son treated him before. The next day, Jae-son asks Cudapan to sign a check for business matters, and even brings up the idea of buying a new house in the city. But Cudapan refuses. He feels like his children lack empathy, as if they are only waiting for him to die so they can claim his wealth. When Jae-son tells Binsi that their request for money has failed, it becomes clear how much she has been counting on that inheritance. In a way, she is also hoping for Cudapan's death. Frustrated, Binsi vents about everything she has done for the household, without getting anything in return. She is especially irritated by Joji, who acts spoiled and expects to be served all the time, even for the smallest things. Joji tries to calm her down, but his words reveal something darker. He casually suggests that his father does not have much time left anyway. Soon after, Joji approaches his father and lays everything out. He talks about how the entire family is struggling financially, and even calls himself a burden, someone who has never lived up to expectations. Then, in a disturbing turn, Joji begins to frame death as a solution. He suggests that instead of suffering, Cudapan's passing could actually help everyone. That is the breaking point. Cudapan suddenly grabs Joji by the throat, leaving him gasping for air. From that moment on, Joji's resentment only grows stronger. After leaving the house, Joji heads to the unfinished pond, trying to clear his mind. But instead of calming down, he begins thinking of a way to kill his own father. Eventually, he goes into town and buys a variety of medications. He carefully studies them, looking for ones that closely resemble his father's prescriptions, planning to swap them out so that Cudapan will slowly die without anyone noticing. Meanwhile, Cudapan is being cared for by his loyal workers, including Thada. They feed him, bathe him, change his clothes, and even take him outside to get some sun. But during those quiet moments outside, Joji secretly swaps Cudapan's medication. Day after day, he continues replacing the real medicine with the fake ones. And every time he does it, he heads to the pond and pretends to go fishing. In reality, there are no fish there at all. It is all part of his plan, creating an alibi so that when Cudapan is eventually found dead, Joji can claim he was nowhere near the house. At one point, Binsi catches him in the act. But instead of exposing him, she chooses to stay silent, because deep down, she also wants her father-in-law gone. It does not take long after that. Cudapan eventually takes his final breath. Family members, friends, neighbors, and relatives all gather to attend his funeral. Everyone, except Joji. He stays in his room, lying on his bed with a blank, unsettling expression. During the funeral, Joman decides to honor what he believes was his father's wish, by setting off fireworks so the family would not be overwhelmed with grief. Felix tries to stop him, thinking Cudapan may not have meant it seriously. But Joman refuses to back down, and the fireworks go off as the body is being carried. The next morning, Joji lets his true feelings show. He runs through the plantation, almost celebrating, looking back at the house with a quiet smile, satisfied that his plan has worked. Elsewhere, the fallout from the funeral continues. Joman ends up arguing with the priest, Kevin, who led the ceremony. The priest is disappointed, not only because of the fireworks incident, but also because of Joman's growing dependence on alcohol. Jae-son tries to smooth things over, asking the priest for forgiveness, and hoping he will still attend the upcoming religious rites for Cudapan. But it is clear that Kevin is hesitant, unsure if he wants to be involved again. Later that night, the family gathers together, including Dr. Felix, to discuss Cudapan's inheritance. Felix delivers the message left behind. The family plantation will go to Joman. The shop and land in the city will belong to Jae-son. Joji, as the youngest, will inherit the house and the surrounding property, and the savings from the bank deposits will be given to Poppy.
തോട്ടം ജോമോന്, കടയും മുണ്ടക്കയത്തെ സ്ഥലവും ജെയ്സന്, ഈ വീടും പറമ്പും ജോജിക്ക്.
Hearing this, Joman feels uncomfortable. He believes it is too soon to talk about inheritance, especially when their father has just passed away. To him, it feels disrespectful. Tension quickly builds between him and Jae-son, who argues that he has worked hard and deserves his share. Even so, Joman tries to keep things grounded, suggesting they postpone the discussion until all the religious ceremonies are finished. Then Joji steps in, presenting himself as the peacemaker. He offers to give 60 million rupees from the sale of his horse to help support Jae-son's family. On the surface, it sounds generous, but his words carry a manipulative tone, as he frames it as a way to prevent their father's spirit from witnessing their greed. During the religious ceremony, everyone gathers around Cudapan's resting place and prays together, led by the priest, Kevin. Joman also takes the opportunity to apologize for setting off fireworks at the funeral, acknowledging that it has caused a lot of gossip. But later, during the meal, things fall apart again. Joman drinks too much and ends up clashing with the priest, blaming him for spreading rumors about their father's death. Joji joins in, turning against his own brother, accusing Joman of not truly caring about their father and painting him as a broken alcoholic who has already lost his family. That night, Joji is haunted by a disturbing dream. He imagines his father rising from the water in the pond. The fear starts to get to him. Worried that his actions might be exposed, he secretly gathers the remaining fake medicine, crushes it, and burns it near the pond. But in his panic, he loses control of the fire, and it begins to spread along the vines on the wall. He quickly rushes to put it out, trying to erase any trace of what he has done. The next morning, Joman and Thota notice something strange near the pond. There are burn marks on the wall, and the net nearby is torn. It immediately raises suspicion, and Joman starts wondering what really happened there. He quickly asks Joji if he had been smoking near the pond the day before. Joji denies it, insisting he has only been smoking by the river and never goes near the pond. Not long after, Joman reflects on his behavior and begins to regret how he treated the priest, realizing that his actions were influenced by alcohol. At the same time, Joman grows frustrated with one of the workers, Jayesh, who has started to suspect that Cudapan's death was not natural. In fact, Jayesh believes someone in the family, especially Joji, may be responsible. On the day Cudapan died, Binsi was the first to find him and scream for help. But according to Jayesh, Joji was seen walking calmly through the forest, even though the screams were loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Hearing this, Joji begins to panic internally. Jayesh could easily become a key witness against him. As soon as he learns where Jayesh is, Joji joins Jomon to go find him, bringing the air gun along. When they finally confront Jayesh, Joji immediately tries to attack him for making accusations. As Jayesh attempts to escape, he reveals that he saw Joji at the pond, pretending to fish in water where there are no fish. He also points out how suspicious it was that Joji walked back home so calmly while Binsi was shouting, almost as if he already knew what had happened. This only deepens Jomon's suspicion. Things get even worse when Joji slips up and contradicts himself about being near the pond. Moments earlier, he had claimed he never went there. At that point, Jomon snaps and grabs Joji, demanding the truth. But instead of confessing, Joji reacts in a shocking way. The blast finishes what he started. Later, in front of the entire family, Joji puts on an act. He accuses Jayesh of being the killer, claiming that he saw Jomon and Jayesh arguing from a distance, followed by a sudden explosion that took Jomon's life. He suggests that either Jayesh threw the explosive or Jomon accidentally triggered it himself. With that story, the family shifts their focus to finding Jayesh. But once again, Joji manipulates the situation. He convinces them that it is better to focus on Jomon's funeral first. He even warns that if Jayesh really is the killer, then he could be dangerous, and anyone searching for him might be at risk. Most of the family believes him. All except Poppy, who quietly begins to suspect that Joji may be responsible, not just for Jomon's death, but for their father's as well. That night, Joji stays with Poppy, who is still devastated by the loss of his father, Jomon. Acting like a caring uncle, Joji gives him advice about studying hard, growing into an independent man, and not letting his life fall apart because of alcohol the way Jomon's did. A few days later, Joji looks up news about Jomon's death. He finds a new report saying that Jayesh, the main suspect, has already gone to the police. Not long after, Jason arrives and confirms it. Jayesh has told the police everything, including his suspicion that Joji is the real killer. Joji simply smiles it off. He insists that he is being framed and shows no sign of fear, convincing himself that he is protected no matter what. Later, Jason talks with Binsi, who finds Joji's behavior strange. Suddenly, he has become more religious, often seen holding a Bible, almost like he is trying to present himself as a changed person. When Binsi runs into Joji in the kitchen, her suspicion becomes clearer. She begins to believe that Joji is responsible for Jomon's death, just like what happened to Cudapan. Joji reacts strongly, angered by the accusation, and pressures Binsi to stay on his side. At the same time, new forensic information reaches Jason. Investigators have found airgun pellets lodged in Jomon's neck. The next morning, Poppy heads out to the horse stable deep in the forest. He retrieves the airgun box that is still there, along with the pellet he fired earlier, which is still stuck in a tree. Meanwhile, Joji wakes up and is immediately shaken when he sees the latest news. The report confirms that airgun pellets were discovered during Jomon's autopsy. For the first time, the fear really sets in. When Joji walks downstairs, he finds the entire family waiting in the living room, along with the workers. Poppy has already told everyone that the airgun belongs to him and that Joji took it. He even brings the gun case and the pellets as proof. Once again, Joji tries to talk his way out of it. But this time, no one believes him. Every single person in the room looks at him with anger and suspicion. With no way out, Joji asks to speak privately with Jason. There, he finally admits everything. He confesses that he killed both their father and their brother. But instead of showing remorse, he turns it into a threat. He claims that 3 other people are also involved. First, Bincy, who knew what he was doing but chose to stay silent. Second, Poppy, since the airgun was originally his. And third, Jason himself, accusing him of covering up the crime after accepting money from the horse sale. Joji pressures Jason to help him, warning that if he refuses, he will drag the entire family down with him. Jason is stunned, realizing just how far gone his younger brother is. But he stands his ground, refusing to help no matter what, even if it puts his own life at risk. Overwhelmed by confusion, desperation, and a deep sense of collapse, Joji retreats to his room. Yet even in that state, he shows a chilling calm, quietly researching the weakest part of the human skull. At the same time, Bincy is caught in her own inner conflict. She cannot ignore the fact that she and Jason had once wished for Cudapan's death in hopes of gaining the inheritance. Soon after, Joji writes a final message and sends it to the entire family. In it, he claims that his death is not a suicide, but the result of being worn down by life itself. He blames his surroundings for everything he has done, and even calls for the police to arrest those he considers responsible. Then as police cars begin to arrive, Joji picks up the airgun and points it at his own head. But this is not the end. Joji does not die. The airgun only leaves him paralyzed, and he is still able to blink. When he wakes up, a doctor and a police officer are already there. They try to get him to confess by asking him to blink in response. But Joji does not blink at all. Even now, he still believes he is right, convinced that it was his environment, not himself, that led him to commit such horrific acts. So the moral of the story is, if your family is toxic, maybe just go to therapy or move out instead of turning into a budget supervillain with an airgun and a master plan that still somehow fails.